What's up out there, ladies and gents? We've laughed, we've cried, we've dodged bullets and caught feelings, but it has all come down to this. The top 10 movies of the 1990s are here. After counting down 90 unforgettable titles, we've reached the final stretch of cinematic greatness. These are the films that broke box office records, changed genres, and left permanent wear and tear on our VCRs. From explosive action to Oscar-winning drama, mind-bending sci-fi to twisted love stories, this list has it all. So whether you're a child of the 90s or just discovering these classics for the first time, buckle up for the ultimate nostalgia ride. So let's find out which 90s films truly stood the test of time. Ben Stiller, Cameron Diaz, and Matt Dillon in a truly unfortunate zipper incident headline There's Something About Mary, an outrageous comedy from 1998 from the Farrelly brothers about love, obsession, and hair gel that ended up changing rom-coms forever. When the Farrelly brothers unleashed There's Something About Mary in 98, romantic comedies pretty much changed overnight, veering from cloying and predictable to wild and weird, yet somehow still lovable. This one follows Stiller as an awkward everyman who has a decades-old crush on his high school dream girl Mary, played by Cameron Diaz, and what begins as a sweet reunion attempt quickly spirals into a competition between increasingly unhinged suitors, all desperate for Mary's affection. I think the movie really does just walk a tightrope between gross out gags and genuine heart. I think Diaz absolutely shines as Mary, delivering the just effortlessly cool and kind-hearted woman who could plausibly drive a dozen men to insanity. I think Stiller is hilarious as well, really just playing exasperated like it's a contact sport, and supporting players like Matt Dillon and Chris Elliott really do crank up the sleeves with comedic precision. I think everybody gets their moment to land some laughs, and the result is, to me at least, a laugh out loud comedy from start to finish. But what I do really think sets Something About Mary apart was just its fearless sense of humor. The Farrellys weren't afraid to go big or inappropriate, but they did anchor the chaos with enough charm to keep audiences on their side. The movie was an absolute box office juggernaut. It crushed R-rated comedy expectations. It gave us Jonathan Richman as a chorus singing troubadour. There are so many comical lines and scenes in this movie, and in short, There's Something About Mary made bodily fluids funny. It made Cameron Diaz a superstar, and it made awkwardness feel sort of heroic. Denzel Washington and Gene Hackman clashed in the nuclear submarine thriller Crimson Tide from 1995, a movie that turns claustrophobic tension into Shakespearean high drama with torpedoes, stare-downs, and enough sweat to fill up the sub. Crimson Tide is the cinematic equivalent of locking two alpha intellects into a steel tube full of nukes and just watching the sparks fly. Directed by Tony Scott and written with a punchy urgency, this submarine thriller pits Hackman's old-school shoot-first Captain Ramsey against Washington's young, cerebral Lieutenant Commander Hunter during a standoff over launching missiles without full orders. It's a tried-and-true submarine flick for sure, but it's also a philosophical showdown that's just wrapped in torpedoes and commands and soaked in sweat. Hackman's chewing scenery with a smirk, while Washington's delivering a righteous intensity that all but burns through the screen. I really think this movie moves like a coiled spring. It's tight, it's tense, it's punctuated perfectly by Hans Zimmer's thunderous score that just overflowed with chance, because it was mid-90s cinema after all. The tension that drives this movie isn't about whether the world will end, it's more about who gets to decide if it should, and that moral dilemma at the core just elevates this movie above genre conventions, turning mutiny and chain of command into just metaphysical battlegrounds. I remember seeing this movie in the theater with an uncle. He loved these military flicks, and Despite being younger, I was all in on the drama and the suspense here. I think Scott's stylized direction just gives the whole thing a slick, anxious energy, and every supporting player from James Gandolfini to Viggo Mortensen just are able to add to this claustrophobic pressure cooker. Crimson Tide didn't just give us a great thriller, it gave us a just master class in verbal sparring and power dynamics, all wrapped in a film that relied on pure character acting. Steven Spielberg's 1993 blockbuster Jurassic Park brings dinosaurs back to life and nearly kills Jeff Goldblum in doing so, in the ultimate cautionary tale about science, capitalism, and theme parks with terrible security protocols. Welcome to Jurassic Park, where science played God, Jeff Goldblum's shirt was comically unbuttoned, and Spielberg reminded us that cinematic blockbusters could still inspire awe. Jurassic Park really was the defining event film of the decade, blending cutting-edge CGI, animatronic wizardry, and sheer cinematic wonder into something truly prehistoric in scale. The plot was simple at its core, but highly inventive. A billionaire builds a dinosaur theme park using recovered dino DNA. I mean, what could go wrong? Well, of course, everything will go wrong. Sam Neill, Laura Dern, and Jeff Goldblum just anchor the chaos here with grounded, fantastic performances that really turned their characters into legends, while Richard Attenborough's twinkly-eyed John Hammond just went from lovable grandpa to a cautionary tale in record time. This movie really was everywhere when it was released. I remember this being one of the first movies that I watched multiple times in the theater. Spielberg just masterfully balanced spectacle and suspense. I mean, the T-Rex breakout, it's still terrifying. The raptors in the kitchen, it's just dino carnage galore. And let's be honest, I mean, nobody looks at a glass of water the same way after this movie. Jurassic Park just was able to deliver an adventure-filled statement on hubris, ethics, and the limits of human control. And I mean, how about John Williams' iconic score? It's pure cinematic serotonin. The film broke box office records. It revolutionized digital and practical effects, and even decades later, few blockbusters have matched Jurassic Park's sense of wonder. Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman chase a cryptic killer throughout a nondescript, rain-soaked city in David Fincher's Seven from 1995, a deep descent into madness, morality, and cardboard boxes that still haunts moviegoers to this day. Seven really became the cinematic equivalent of staring off into the abyss and having the abyss whisper back to you, "What's in the fucking box?" Directed by David Fincher with an unrelenting dread, this bleak masterpiece follows two detectives, the veteran Morgan Freeman and the rookie Brad Pitt, as they investigate a series of murders inspired by the seven deadly sins. It seems simple enough, but soon the mystery peels back like a rotten onion, with each new layer just nastier than the last. The rain never stops, the city is unnamed, but I don't know why, it always kind of felt like Chicago to me. Regardless, the hope level in this movie, it hovers like somewhere near a zero. Yet, despite all of that, I think Seven is still extremely mesmerizing. Freeman brings gravitas and quiet resignation to his role, while Pitt's impulsive rookie energy just explodes perfectly by the final act. Then there's Kevin Spacey's John Doe, chilling, calm, driven, and horrifyingly just convinced he's the hero of his own biblical message. He truly shows how intelligence and evil can be so frightening when fused together. I think Fincher's direction just really turns the urban landscape into a character of its own. It's grimy, it's decaying, it's morally bankrupt. The film's oppressive atmosphere just wraps around you like a wet newspaper. And the finale, well, if you know, you know. If you somehow don't, brace yourself. Seven really elevated serial killer thrillers and redefined them. It's nihilistic, it's unforgettable, and it made audiences walk out of the theater in stunned silence. In Fight Club, Edward Norton and Brad Pitt punched the 90s in the face in this nihilistic, subversive 1999 cult classic about identity, consumerism, and soap that probably smells like gloriously toxic masculinity. The first rule of Fight Club is you definitely talk about Fight Club, because this movie hit late 90s culture like a brick through a corporate window. Based on Chuck Palahniuk's novel, David Fincher's adaptation is a mind-bending descent into masculinity, identity, and consumer rage, all wrapped in sweat, blood, bravado, and nihilistic poetry. Edward Norton is a sleep-deprived drone spiraling into existential crisis until he meets this guy named Tyler Durden, played with a pleasantly greasy charisma by Brad Pitt, and what begins as a few guys in an underground fight club turns into a full-blown anti-capitalist, anti-consumerism insurgency, complete with an explosive finale and an unforgettable twist. A stylish, chaotic, and deeply quotable Fight Club would spark 1 million dorm room posters, including this guy. It's a film that both critiques toxic masculinity but is also co-opted by it, which is sort of the point of it all. Helena Bonham Carter's chain-smoking Marla is awesome, just adding an essential layer of emotional chaos and heartbreak to this testosterone stew. I think Fincher directs with a brutal elegance, turning soap making into a metaphor and IKEA catalogs into horror shows. And while it was divisive upon release, Fight Club grew into a cult classic that continues to provoke conversation. It's not a love story, it's just a violently delivered middle finger complete with a black eye. In The Silence of the Lambs, Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins share brainy mind games and talk fava beans in this chilling 1991 thriller that made cannibalism Oscar-worthy and forever redefined the phrase, "a nice bottle of Chianti." It puts the lotion in the basket because The Silence of the Lambs put the psychological thriller genre in a chokehold and never let go. This 1991 Oscar sweeper wasn't just a crime drama, it was a disturbing, cerebral nightmare. Jodie Foster starred as Clarice Starling, a young FBI trainee who's just immediately thrust into just the darkest corners of human behavior and mentality, and she's without a doubt fantastic in this character. But I think it's Anthony Hopkins as Dr. Hannibal Lecter who steals every scene with just a chilling elegance, and with just about maybe 16 minutes of screen time, I think they said, he really was able to redefine villainy and elevate the meaning of terrifying. Director Jonathan Demme really does shoot this one with an intense intimacy, often placing the camera just uncomfortably close as if Lecter is staring directly into your soul, and it's super effective in creating uneasiness. The scenes between Starling and Lecter, I think, are a master class in dialogue, psychology, and dread. And meanwhile, Buffalo Bill's lurking in the backdrop as one of cinema's most unsettling serial killers of the 90s. I remember being brought to the theater by some older family members to see this movie. I was like 13, way too young to see this movie, and I didn't sleep well for like a week or maybe even a month. I mean, The Silence of the Lambs isn't flashy, but it's smart, it's patient, it's razor sharp. It became only the third film in history to win the Big Five Oscars: Best Director, Picture, Actor, Actress, and Screenplay. It still slithers into pop culture conversations decades later, and rightfully so, because it's a haunting descent into the minds of monsters and of the people who have the courage to face them. Keanu Reeves takes the red pill and bullet time would be born in The Matrix, the 1999 sci-fi revolution where trench coats, philosophy, and slow-motion kung fu collided in virtual style and changed the game of action cinema forever. Now, The Matrix didn't just bend the rules of action cinema, it roundhouse kicked them in midair in slow motion. The Wachowskis' mind-melting sci-fi epic dropped just before Y2K paranoia would hit its peak, and suddenly we were all wondering if reality was in fact a simulation or just a very convincing lie. This was one of the very first DVDs I ever owned. I watched it so many times for several months with friends, girlfriends, family. By my lonesome, it didn't matter. This movie was on repeat for a while. Keanu Reeves is Neo, a mild-mannered hacker turned messianic kung fu warrior. And really, though, this movie isn't just about the trench coats and bullet time, as visually splendid and stylish as they were. It was really more a philosophical deep dive on control and destiny and waking up from complacency. Lawrence Fishburne's Morpheus was all gravitas and gospel. Carrie Ann Moss's Trinity redefined badass, and Hugo Weaving's Agent Smith gave us a villain so smooth that even his disdain sounded elegant. And with its sleek, cyberpunk aesthetic and its Eastern-influenced fight choreography and just a reality-questioning narrative, The Matrix became a cultural reset. The special effects changed in the industry. The dialogue for this movie would become meme fuel, and the red pill would enter the pop culture lexicon permanently. It was more than a film. The Matrix was kind of an awakening, and once you saw it, there was no going back. In Terminator 2 Judgment Day, Arnold was back. This time he was the good guy in James Cameron's 1991 action masterpiece where killer robots, molten steel, a little boy, and his nutjob mother are going to fight to save humanity from itself. Now, with this movie, James Cameron would create the sequel. Terminator 2 turned Arnold Schwarzenegger's cold-blooded killer from the original into the most lovable cyborg guardian in movie history, while simultaneously cranking the action, the emotion, and liquid metal innovation up to a 20 out of 10. Linda Hamilton returned as a transformed Sarah Connor, battle-hardened, paranoid, and absolutely ripped. Edward Furlong's John Connor felt perfect as the reluctant savior of the future, and Robert Patrick's T-1000 was a breakout, a shape-shifting nightmare in a cop uniform with the world's most terrifying poker face, and with groundbreaking CGI and massive set pieces like the canal chase, all topped off with an emotional undercurrent that sneaks up on you, and this sequel delivered the total package. But Terminator 2 was more than just shootouts and explosions. It had heart, sacrifice, and one of the most quoted catchphrases of all time, "Hasta la vista, baby," is a quote burned into pop culture like molten steel. I remember walking out of the theater with my friend and his older brother. We were all really just in awe over what we'd just seen. Terminator 2 redefined what an action movie could be, visually, narratively, and emotionally, proving to be the future of blockbuster filmmaking, and it's still one of the best action movies of all time. Martin Scorsese's 1990 gangster epic Goodfellas turned the American dream into a coke-fueled nightmare, with Ray Liotta, Joe Pesci, and Robert De Niro slicing their way into cinematic history. As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster, and with that line, Goodfellas grabs you by the collar and drags you through 30 years of mob life, all set to the greatest jukebox soundtrack ever compiled. Now, as an Italian guy, I've always had this unconditional love for mob movies. Oddly enough, something about them feels kind of homey, kind of comforting in a sense, but I'm sure that probably tells you a lot more about me than it does this movie. Regardless, though, Martin Scorsese's electrifying masterpiece here just perfectly tells the rise and fall story of Henry Hill, played by Ray Liotta, in just a world-class performance. He's flanked by Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro, who are both fantastic as well. Pesci's Oscar-winning performance really is just pure wild-card danger in a press suit. One minute he's cracking jokes, the next minute he's cracking skulls, and his unhinged personality just keeps you on edge perfectly. The direction in this movie is pristine, as you would expect. Every camera move, every cut, every line is precise and propulsive. The Copacabana Steadicam shot alone should be in the Cinematic Hall of Fame, and Overall, Scorsese here makes excess look effortless as he takes you on a ride of mob life. I mean, cocaine-fueled paranoia? Check. Jailhouse dinners with garlic sliced razor thin? Iconic. Goodfellas was a revolution in the form of a gangster flick. It was stylish, it was brutal, and endlessly quotable. It really did redefine the mob genre while also reminding everyone that Martin Scorsese doesn't just make movies, he creates cinematic magic. In Heat, Al Pacino and Robert De Niro go head-to-head in Michael Mann's 1995 crime saga, centering on a high-stakes game of cat and mouse set to an LA backdrop of existential cool and legendary machine gun shootouts. So what do you get when you put screen legends Al Pacino and Robert De Niro on opposite sides of the law, then give Michael Mann and his directorial prime a camera and tell him to make the slickest, most emotionally intelligent crime saga of the 90s? You get Heat, an epic that turns the cops and robbers formula into high-stakes cinematic poetry. De Niro plays Neil McCauley, a cool, skilled, methodical thief who lives by a code. Pacino plays Vincent Hanna, a also skilled, caffeinated detective who eats pressure for breakfast and personal stability for lunch. And when these two titans finally sit down for a diner conversation, it's not just acting, it's action movie mythology being written in real time. This movie grabbed me instantly as a teen. It felt so cool and just real and gritty and lacking that usual Hollywood gloss. Man really brought the just the seediness of LA to life perfectly, turning the city and its underground into just a moody playground for this game of cat and mouse. He delivers plenty of meticulous gunfights, particularly the downtown shootout that I think still holds up as a masterclass, and you get the supporting cast with names like Kilmer and Judd and Sizemore and Portman and many others, all helping to bring this dark but alluring world to life. Heat wasn't just about crime, it was about loneliness and obsession and greed and the cost of doing what you're the best at. I think Heat was very sleek, it was sprawling and surprisingly human beneath all the firepower, and upon its release it was far ahead of its time. It was and is Michael Mann's best movie, and now I think it remains a timeless classic. And that's a wrap, everybody. 100 unforgettable films, 10 nostalgic episodes, and one glorious decade of cinema, from The Sixth Sense to Saving Private Ryan, Pulp Fiction to Point Break. The 90s gave us a little bit of everything and a whole lot of awesome. I want to thank you guys all so much for taking this countdown journey with me, rewinding through some childhood and teenage favorites, some film school staples, and some guilty pleasures that became legends. Whether you agreed, debated, highly disagreed, or made your own list along the way, the goal was simple: to celebrate the unforgettable movie magic that this decade truly did deliver. Now go watch a few of these again, find them on streaming, maybe on DVD or a Blu-ray or that VHS tape that's still hiding in a box down in your basement. The 90s never really left, and they're always ready for one more rewatch. I want to thank you guys all so much for watching. I hope you guys have enjoyed this series. Be on the lookout for the next series of videos coming real soon. I hope to see you guys all back for that. And until then, you know the saying, movies never say die.
This is Jack Burton in the Pork Chop Express, and I'm talking to whoever's listening out there.
To have a war, you gotta become war.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
You trying to say Jesus Christ can't hit a curveball?